Thank you, Shocks. The 3-1 victory there for KOO. Interestingly enough, this means that one team from each group has qualified for the semifinals. We have KOO from Group A, Fnatic from Group B, SKT from Group C, and Origen from Group D. So everyone making a representation in the semifinals. But I do want to dive into this game because KOO once again, and Smeb specifically on that Fiora, played very well to close it out.
The laning phase was not pretty, to be honest. He fell behind by, I think, 70 CS at one point, but that didn't matter. It looked like he was playing the same Fiora that he played the previous game, which was tower diving left, right, and center. And again, KOO comes out with a better composition that can be executed into the weaknesses of KT, which they very gladly just pick every single time, and to be expected, a clean win from them.
There's been a lot of talk about the Darius versus Fiora matchup, and I was talking about how Fiora is very, very similar to Riven when you learn the intricacies of it, and Smeb kind of echoed that sentiment there, saying he thought Darius was the one to go for, but then once you learn the mechanics on Riven, you're able to take that away. So when it's Fiora versus Darius, you end up having the burden of execution be on Fiora. It's her decisions that really affect that lane, when she riposts, when she actually dives in which direction. So the way that that's played out is when you have enough games on Fiora and he has been putting the time in, you take that matchup, I would say 70% of the time, if you have the skills to do so.
It's like what I want to hit on is KT. Like KT with the draft, I feel like they tried to copy Fnatic in a way where they pick a stronger mid lane matchup that can roam, that LeBlanc game specifically against EDG. They pick a strong mid laner that can outpush. Cassiopeia is considered quite strong into Victor because this matchup is very punishing, but later on, of course, Victor wins because of scaling. And then you have this top lane matchup that Score always kind of figures out for them. But the missing piece that they didn't pick up while they were looking at Fnatic was their AD carries that they always pick is in the shape of Savior, Kennen. Sure, they played some Jinx yesterday as well, but it didn't really set them up to enable this pressure that came from these other lanes. The Jinx, sure, it works into the late game, but you're not going to win in the late game anyway. So just try to play on the pressure that you have, which came from the early game, from the mid and the top. To transition that into bottom, pick a Kennen and pressure that.
Yeah, not only were KT's drafts just a little strange every time, they were lacking engaged. They were getting early leads, but they didn't have a way to really push that lead and force their will onto their opponent. Exactly. And they were kind of waiting for them to do things. But aside from that, we saw Peekaboo making some very odd decisions, getting caught out, taunting into one person, and then just really not having the perfect setup. It seemed like some frustration there that they couldn't close games out, that they had advantages and they needed these fights. But then also, you look at Nagne. He's usually giving so much damage later on, but this was an underperformance from a lot of members from KT here.
Well, sure. I do think that KOO played pretty well to have that comeback victory. On top of the fact that it was a little sloppy, them getting caught out in certain instances, but what really stood out was the chaining, the CCs during these team fights. They have a compositions with a lot of crowd control. You saw with the Caitlyn traps into the Veigar cage. You have the headbutt pulverized, and I think the only one that was remotely botched was one in the bot lane with a gank on with Elise and Alistar. But besides that, the chaining of crowd control with Victor on top of that, I mean, the Victor was just stellar. Probably the best Victor in the tournament. Maybe Faker can contest that, but I'd be looking at that pick.
All right, a couple of the things I want to explore. We already mentioned that there were a few games in which KOO did get behind. So when we look forward in the tournament against teams that are even more willing to put pressure on, Fnatic as an example, how are they going to buff up that early game to make sure they don't get 3-4K behind and against a team comp that won't let them back in?
I think it comes down to the jungling. Lee Hojin didn't have a very stellar jungler performance, particularly with the jungle pathing. He was in wrong places at the wrong times, and we highlighted that he fell behind 2 levels in the jungle. By the time that Score was level 7, he was level 5, and that's because he kept sitting in the top lane brush, just waiting for something to happen, based purely on intuition and not really actual ward knowledge. So once he focuses on playing with the information that you have instead of your intuition, which may be wrong or may be incredibly right, you will have a better showing.
And that's where I want to flip to the other side of the matchup, Zyrene. Score, for me, on KT was the big performer of the day. Even with the loss, was coming up huge, making a lot of plays, really had a great presence around the map.
Yeah, if KT ended up winning, Score was probably going to be player of the series. He was having such consistent performances from every single game. He was getting his top laner ahead. Sometimes, someday would throw that away, and then he would go bottom, and he'd get his bottom advantage. And these are where those early game advantages were coming from, was Score's pathing, and also his casks were just really good, catching prey out a couple times and being able to continue to keep that momentum up. Some nice steals in the first few games on objectives, but then it just didn't seem to have the same type of impact because he had to be like an S++, which does not exist in order to be able to carry his team through a lot of these games.
I feel like Hojin was like the bigger downfall when it comes to KOO Tigers. Like first, when I heard of Hojin, I was like, oh, they replaced Lee, finally. And then Zyrene told me, like at the start of this tournament, Lee is actually just Hojin Renek.
It's the same guy.
And then when I saw him in these games, like the things that Lee used to do, like these inconsistent patterns, they came back and I got worried for a second. And seeing that like against a team like Fnatic in the future, Reignover is pretty consistent in his patterns. He's going for that top lane gank, and he always has a plan. So I'm kind of worried in that particular matchup. That is what is exposed for KOO Tigers.
I'm also very worried about that matchup because both of these jungle pools, you can pinch these jungle pools. Whoever gets Elise in this matchup has a huge advantage. I wouldn't be surprised if you're seeing Rek'Sai and Elise bans on every blue side, or at least maybe one of them and forcing the other one to be banned because you'll get one yourself. I think that you can pinch this pool pretty hard.
I think it's less so if whoever gets Elise and just Elise is broken. You can't be like, you just can't beat this champion. It's too strong right now with the tower diving. It's how we talked about, you pick Elise, you've won the lanes for everybody else. Like, hey guys, I'm existing. I'm doing my job.
Yeah, very much so. But you bring up a good point, which is pinching of champions and the distribution of champions in pick and ban, because once again, with the performance of Smeb on Fiora, we're seeing now Fiora, Tahm Kench, the
Veigar.
mandatory Mord and GP bans, the Veigar, all the Elise being a huge pick, and then that's without even target banning any specific team, where now you're saying like, oh, we want to get a 0 out against this guy, or Victor. What do you do now? All of a sudden, this is making champions like very interesting in terms of how teams are going to allocate the power and where they put their bans.
I actually think the pattern that the Fnatic had in the group stage was to kind of disrespect the opponent, particularly the Yasuo top game, and saying, you know what, we're just going to beat you with what you have. We'll beat you with just a weaker pick, but we can outskill you with it. That was kind of I'm not sure if it was Huni's mentality or the team mentality, but that's why it was picked. Riven, on the other hand, is a champion that we have no idea how the matchup into Fiora goes at the highest level. This is the first time we've seen Fiora really showcase in all 4 games back-to-back. Okay, these are the limits of the champion. How crazy does it get into the late game? Okay, very crazy. What about Riven? How does Riven do into that? I'm guarantee you, Huni and Smeb don't have a lot of matchup into that because not all the top laners here play those 2 champions, so there's not a lot of practice.
Final thoughts on the Champions League point.
I think it comes down to what idea people have coming into Champions League. For example, when it comes to KT, they have this idea that Darius is a stronger part, but against Fnatic, they've shown the Riven. So that is one way of dealing with these stronger champions. If you find a way to deal with these champions, you don't need to ban them. And GP Mordekaiser, there's no way of dealing with these champions. You just have to be banned.
All right, well, we're going to take an opportunity to head backstage where Deficio is standing by with KOO's victorious jungler.
Thank you very much, Dash. I'm joined by Hojin from the KOO Tigers. He just qualified to the semifinal where he's taking on Fnatic, of course. My first question is, back at IEM Katowice, you guys didn't have a great performance. Now you're top 4 in the world all of a sudden. What has changed for the KOO Tigers compared to back then at IEM Katowice?
호진 선수 우선 4강 진출을 축하드리고요. 이제 KOO 타이거즈가 IM전 때는 이제 살짝 안 좋은 모습을 보여주셨는데 이번에 완전 다른 모습으로 롤드컵 이제 상위 4개 팀에 지금 들어갔습니다. 그 당시 KOO 타이거즈랑 지금 KOO 타이거즈랑 어떻게 달라졌는지 좀 설명해 주세요.
저희가 항상 저희 팀의 원동력이 강함의 원동력이 뭐냐고 물으면 저희는 항상 이 친구 같은 가족 같은 그런 분위기라고 말하거든요. 근데 그 분위기가 저희를 약간 좀 쉽게 좀 건방지게도 좀 만들고 이렇게 좀 긴장도 빨리 풀리게 만들어서 아마 그게 좀 패착의 원인이 되었던 것 같아서 저희가 정말 보완하려고 많이 노력해서 이번에 좀 많이 준비했기 때문에 이렇게 여기까지 올 수 있는 게 아닌가 싶어요.
So whenever somebody asks what the KOO Tigers' main strength is, we would answer that it's like that friendship and that connection between each other. It's like a family connection. But I think at the IEM tournament, we were a bit too confident and maybe arrogant at some point. So while coming to the World Championship, we tried really hard to fix that problem and play better as a team.
Is the friendship you guys have on your team what makes you so good at always getting back in these games? You guys were down 6,000 gold and you managed to claw your way back and you've done it before. Like, what makes you guys so good at always getting back in the game even if you fall behind early?
KOO 타이거즈 팀도 워낙 역전을 잘하기로 한 유명한 팀인데 이번 마지막 게임도 6천 골드 이제 좀 뒤쳐져 있었지만 결국 역전해냈습니다. 이 역전할 수 있는 힘에 대해서 좀 얘기해 주세요.
아까도 말했듯이 저희 그 가족 같은 그런 친근함이 단점이 될 때도 있지만 이렇게 역전할 때 장점이 되어서 역으로 작용할 수도 있기 때문에 아마 그런 이유로 저희가 이렇게 역전도 잘하고 또 운도 좀 따라줘서 그렇게 이긴 것 같아요.
So I think the main reason behind why we're so good at comebacks is, as I said in the previous question, like that connection between our teams, like that faith, leads us to play better even though we're behind, and manage to come back overall.
Last question here. Is Koo Tigers right now the best team in the world?
마지막 질문으로 지금 쿠 타이거즈가 세계에서 가장 강한 팀이라고 생각되나요?
솔직히 8강 치르기 전에는 저희가 정말 자신감에 차 있었고 그때 이런 질문을 물었더라면 저희가 당연히 저희는 최강의 팀입니다라고 자신 있게 말할 수 있었는데 지금은 좀 약간 이렇게 탑정글 준비를 많이 했거든요. 근데 약간 이렇게 무너지는 모습을 보여서 자신감을 조금 잃긴 했는데 아마 다시 준비한다면 당연히 다시 말할 수 있을 것 같아요. 저희가 최고라고.
So if you asked this question before the quarterfinals, today's match, I would have said, of course, we're the best team in the world. But today's game, I think we prepared the top jungle a lot, but then we struggled quite a bit. So for now, I'm not too confident, but I think we prepared a lot. For the next semifinals, we can regain that confidence to say that once again, we're the best team in the world.
Well, I wish you the best of luck and thank you so much for the interview. Let's send it back to Adash and the guys on the analyst desk.
Thank you, DeFicio. I love the first question, the response to the first question, because it paints the picture of Koo Tigers, a team that rose to dominance in the spring split, then had quite a stumble, definitely struggled for a large period of time, made their run back up into Worlds, and here they are flourishing, top 4 teams at Worlds now, and they look pretty good. Hojin there saying they can still be better, but...
Friendship's what allows them to come back. They're just a bunch of bros playing League together and just happen to make it to the semifinals of League.
I kind of miss their cute outfits, though. They used to have such great outfits.
I always look forward to their outfits.
I think it's also the lesson of underestimating preparation. I think most teams go through this once. I remember this one game we played against Giants, who were known for playing with this Jax and Morgana every time, and we didn't ban it, and we got smacked by it. So that's I think it's just the lesson of preparation and appreciating preparation.
And to your point, Zyrene, them not being allowed to have an infinite number of uniforms makes us look better by comparison, because they're not showing up at the tournament and outclassing us. Turning back to the top lane, though, Smeb had an exceptional day as the Grand Duelist on the Rift and claimed our Player of the Series honors.
He just had an amazing series. Coming into here, we were looking at Someday as a guy who had so much consistency to him, but then this 1v1 matchup just kept happening all of the time. And Smeb got to a point where he was level 18 when everybody else was level 15 in the game, and he just kept coming back from deficits with Hojin at his side. Lose a little bit early, but he was always staying in it. That friendship really coming through for Koo Tigers.
So the question is Fiora MVP or is Smeb MVP?
Smeb.
It's just because I think it was very clear based on the graphic. No, but Smeb, because as we mentioned, the skill cap of that champion, where sure, Fiora is a strong champion, but only if you can execute on it properly.
That's why I'm looking forward so much to Smeb versus Huni, because they both play Fiora, they both play Riven, they both are mechanically just gifted on these champions. I want to see what happens there, because we might have another Faker versus Ryu kind of outplay going.
All right. I mean, I hope to see the same. Looking at the quarterfinals as a whole, though, earlier we asked what surprised you the most in this stage of Worlds 2015. And Nick Renier tweets, no quarterfinal series has gone 5 games, despite such an explosive and unpredictable group stage.
It's like the first thought that comes to mind. Even though some of these matchups didn't go to 5 games, like the Fnatic EDG, I felt it was really close, even though it wasn't 3-0.
Yeah, a lot of these games with different picks and bans, right? We just saw a series between KT and Koo that could have gone 5 games if everybody was playing the pick and ban well, and then they went through and then they executed on it. But something, everybody's like, oh, who do you want to win the World Championship and all that? And I'm like, what I really want is the finals to be all 5 games. We've never had a World Championship finals go all 5 games. That's really what I want.
So we're saving up for it
by
having no 5-game series in the quarters. We're gonna have a 5-game.
As long as
final.
I get that one.
Well, the reason you don't have those 5 games quarters is because the tournament meta has really stabilized. After you get the group stage going, especially as it's divided in a couple of days in between, it really allows the teams to reassess what they did wrong and what they did right, and then come up with a better strategy, practice against each other with what they deem is the better strategy after what they had practiced before Worlds. And then, you get a lot of more refined gameplay, and it might not look the prettiest, but at least in their own context, it's the best league that they can show.
All right, next up from Eric Darua, the strength of Tom Kench has surprised me. I knew he sounded strong, but wow, he has shown his power.
Speaking of tournament meta, Tom Kench is definitely up there in my opinion. I'm really surprised that people lagged on finding out how powerful he is. Same with Fiora. I feel like both these champions moving forward in semis and finals are going to be highly contested because they are both extraordinarily powerful, and what they do on the Rift, not many other champions can even do or contest.
It's like when I saw Tom Kench for the first time when it was released, my comparison that I drew, like when it was supported, is just like a worse version of Thresh and Morgana, but in reality, it's just a better version of both. That's what it is.
You had it all backwards, my friend. All right, well, with the quarterfinals done, let's see how the bracket settled. Coup Tigers took down KT Rolster, and we'll move on to Brussels, where they'll face Fnatic. And in our other semifinal, it's Origin and SK Telecom battling for a place on stage in Berlin. That's our show for today, but we'll be back next week starting with an all-new, hot-off-the-griddle Belgian-style primetime league coated with all the sweet memes you've come to know and love. Then on Saturday, our Worlds coverage returns from the Brussels Expo as Europe's Origin takes on the LCK's SK Telecom T1. And on Sunday, it's Fnatic versus Coup Tigers battling for a spot in the finals. Our coverage kicks off on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Central European Time. That's 7:30 a.m. Pacific. And according to EU West Kalsong Rick, Soaz will have his work cut out for him with Marin. Marin has surprised me the most. I knew he was really good, but not godlike.
Yeah, Marin has definitely been a huge force to be reckoned with. And not only that...
Another Fiora player.
Exactly. He's another Fiora player, and we've seen him play from a deficit as well. And also, Marin calls a ton of the shots for that team, right? So he's a big leader for them. If you can take down Marin, or if he snowballs, he starts putting that into the rest of the game.
One of the weaknesses that he's had, though, this entire time is that he's relatively easy to gank. He plays so aggressive that whoever he's playing against can feel a little oppressed after his up-in-your-face playstyle, just always putting the pressure on. And if you just find a way to sneak a gank in there, you know, you can probably set him behind quite a bit.
If you're ganking him, you're not ganking Faker.
It's like,
why would you ever gank Faker?
Like the beauty of Marin, yes, I find them very beautiful. The beauty of Marin to me is the fact that he fits into all of these different metas so well. It's like we come into this world with a complete new meta, like revolving around these assassins. People questioning Marin being able to play these like bruisers, assassins may be the wrong word, but Fiora, Darius, and he's playing them phenomenally. The fact that he's willing to adapt and doing it really well is what is amazing to me.
You could call him a timeless top laner. Well, that does it for us today. The Worlds Tonight is hitting your browsers in just 15 minutes, so stick around for the week's action broken down by myself, Spawn, and Crumbs. Now, on behalf of the entire live broadcast crew bringing you Worlds 2015, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week, and good night.